Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. Today, let's talk about landlords. Heads up all you renters. Now you can be forced to use their internet service provider or whatever kind of internet they're giving you. Now, there has been a lot of talk about this. I don't know if anybody has paid attention that is listening to this or watching this, but I'm coming from Sky Jacobs of TechSpot, who I thought had a really concise write-up on this. Because quite frankly, I'm not a fan, but let's dive into this because there are pros and cons that we are going to go through here to be fair to all sides. Now, what we are talking about essentially is the new FCC chairman, Brendan Carr. He's been on the FCC for years, for the record, but now he is the chairman, replacing Jessica Rosen-Worcel. And anyway, he has withdrawn a proposal to ban mandatory bulk billing arrangements for internet services in apartment buildings. Now, this decision is a departure from the previous administration's, the Biden administration's efforts to increase competition and consumer choice in the broadband market. Now, the proposal, which was originally put forward by the former chairwoman, Rosen-Worcel, in March of 2024, sought to prohibit arrangements that required tenants to pay for specific internet services, even if they preferred alternative providers. In other words, your landlord has AT&T and you really want Comcast. That was an option, and now they're saying, no, you're going to be on AT&T whether you like it or not, or if you get another one, you're still going to pay for AT&T as part of your rental contract, and that is legal. Rosen-Worcel also argued that such practices often lead to higher prices and limit choices for residents in apartments, condos, and public housing as well. So her proposal was not a complete ban on bulk billing, but instead it essentially was trying to give tenants the options to opt out of these arrangements, potentially opening up the door for more competition. So again, if you're not stuck with AT&T, maybe Comcast would come in and say, you know what, you're an AT&T building, but we'll take you. That's what we're talking about here. Now, Brendan Carr, who was basically appointed, obviously, this position in the transition. Now we have a President Trump, no longer a President Biden, and so he has been basically elevated to chairman, has now removed that from the commission's consideration, citing concerns about potential increases in price for consumers. And so with that, that's essentially the backdrop, but let's discuss both sides of this argument. So let's talk about the proponents of this. Now, basically, the proponents of these bulk billing arrangements include the National Multifamily Housing Council, the National Apartment Association, and Real Estate Technology and Transformation Center, and they are obviously praising Mr. Carr's decision. They argue that these arrangements often provide high-speed internet to renters at rates up to 50% lower than standard retail pricing, and they remove barriers such as credit checks and installation fees. And that may very well be the case. Quite frankly, here we are, right? But the critics aren't buying it. And what the critics are saying and essentially arguing is that bulk billing practices effectively shut out competition, even if they don't explicitly grant exclusive rights to a single provider. So in 2022, the FCC attempted to address this by essentially banning exclusive revenue sharing agreements between landlords and internet service providers in multi-tenancy buildings. Basically, that was received with bipartisan support. In other words, Republicans and Democrats essentially on the FCC council agreed with that. So I will give Chairman Carr the last word here before I dive in with my quick thoughts. Now, he obviously defended this decision, calling the measure, quote unquote, regulatory overreach, and also saying that it, quote, would have hit families right in their pocketbooks, end quote. So here's the thing. I'm not necessarily buying that. And I think personally and overarchingly, having options is always better. So if you are, let's say, renting an apartment in a multi-tenancy building and the landlord says, hey, I've got, internet for $50 a month, whatever, et cetera, sure, that's great. And maybe the local competing, Comcast to his AT&T is $100 a month. But I should have the choice. I might want more bandwidth. Comcast may be more reliable in my area than AT&T or vice versa. And so by virtue of that, maybe I'm on unreliable internet, which then directly impacts my job. Or if I have to pay for AT&T and then on top of it have to pay for Comcast to actually get better, more stable internet, that's of concern. And that's exactly what happened to me in my 20s. And so by virtue of that, I was living in a multi-tenancy building around the Chicagoland area and essentially was originally using the internet off of, the landlord's provider. which was AT&T, and basically said, no, I want to get Comcast. Now, I had the ability, and he didn't care. I say, look, I'm not going to pay for your AT&T anymore. I'm going to get my own Comcast connection. And he really didn't have a problem with that. But imagine a position where I'm now paying $150, as opposed to the $100 a month that I would be paying for Comcast, because I'm paying for a $50 AT&T line that I don't want because it's unreliable, and it would literally drop. I could tell exactly when like a remote desktop session would drop because it would freeze and it would come back about 12 seconds later or so, and it was over and over and over. And so I got a Comcast business line and that fixed it. Now maybe in other buildings Comcast sucks and AT&T is better. It's not rating them. But my point is that I had the option, I had the ability, and I had the choice, and I also had the right to pay more if I was going to get better service. And so if we're getting rid of that, I'm not a fan. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because, quite frankly, in a capitalist society, competition breeds improvement, and I'd love to hear arguments against it. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at Nick A. ESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well, Mastodon and Blue Sky also. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, just please, attempt to stay private and informed. Take care.